I'm Thatcher. I'm from an organisation based out of the Western Cape called Edunova, and our core mandate is to put technology solutions into educational environments that are challenged and disadvantaged. Obviously that covers quite a variety of things. Today I'm going to be sharing with you our Learning Centre development model, which is the area of our organisation that I'm currently responsible for. Obviously, any questions that you have about the organisation at large, you're welcome to ask me or network with me later on during the day as well. So, to start off and provide some context, a few days ago as I was putting together this presentation, I took a snapshot of life in 2013. I did this by visiting some of our major newspaper websites, Mail and Guardian, News 24 and The Times Live. And as I assumed, these websites were speaking in their headlines about the challenges currently facing us. So political, social, economic challenges that all of us and our society, both local and global, are being confronted with every single day. The same was true when I visited my Twitter feed. Within 6 minutes of each other, the Parliament of South Africa and Lead SA, or through the LEAP schools, commented about economic, violence, education, environment, all the big challenges that society is being confronted with right now. And I know that in my life as a former teacher, someone working in education at Edunova, the reality is that those youth currently in our system are the ones who are going to be most challenged by these challenges and most confronted with them. And I know that for me, I live in the hope that something will enable these young people to make a difference, to really start to challenge those challenges, to come up with solutions for them. And the expectation and the assumption at large, I think, is that education will be the platform through which to do this. So what we also know is that education needs to produce learners and young people who are very different from what we have right now. Creative thinkers, critical thinkers, people who are self-aware, people who can work collaboratively, can communicate well, and can start to solve these problems. The reality is, education in South Africa right now is not producing these people. And the reason is, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Our education system at large, and this is not just true in South Africa, but the world over, is that we're educating children in the same way we've been doing for the last, never mind 20 years or 30 years, but for the last 150 years. Teachers stand up in front of classrooms, try to facilitate learning as best they can in some instances, but it's really not the education that the children of today really need. So at Edunova, we're trying to be relevant. And for us, the one way to do this is to start integrating technology into education. We know that young people in South Africa are technically engaged. They're all on mobile phones. Even in the poorest communities, children have access to cell phones, feature phones, more and more smartphones, tablets, learning devices. The youth are hungry for technology. They're all on Facebook. They're all using Twitter. And largely, there is a huge disconnect between what those in industry, both education, NPO, are doing around technology in terms of connecting to the children who are really, really using these platforms. So, one of the ways that Edunova is trying to be relevant is through our Learning Centre model. At our so just to give you a bit of context, our learning centres are basically technology hubs. They're community halls, essentially, that we've gone into communities, used up the space, we've put up some drywalls, we've set up some infrastructure, good internet, excellent Wi-Fi, and basically created a hub where technology is prevalent. Laptops, mobile phones, mobile devices like tablets, and we start engaging principals, teachers, young adults, and students with these technologies, and specifically to enable them to have good learning experiences. What we want are for people to, through exposure, have the opportunity to build confidence, to grow their skills and to build their knowledge, and not just around technology, but how technology can be the part that integrates this with their content and with the learning that they need to do about other issues. So that can be subject content, but also the social content that the world is currently challenged with. So in our learning centres, we've got this technology, and the really important piece are the human resources who couple with this technology to enable the difference. So I want to give you an example of one of the projects that we've facilitated. Our facilitators run a course where young people And this is sometimes young adults, sometimes learners in schools, and we've done this exercise with teachers as well, where they come in and their first exposure to computers and technology is learning a little bit about multimedia technologies. And this can be really, really simple stuff like Microsoft Photo Story or PowerPoint. And then we enable them through using the internet. Their first introduction to web-based learning is to do some research using Google, using various search engines, and find out about a social issue that affects them. So it might be something like drug and alcohol abuse or crime or teenage pregnancy. They have the choice in that. They do some research around statistical data, the real realities of these social issues globally, locally, in their communities. And then we encourage them to go out back into their communities, interviewing peers, talking to colleagues about how these issues affect them on a more personal, more subjective, in a more emotional environment. They come back into our learning centre. Using those technologies, they build a public service announcement. And it's really just a short little movie clip that they make. They use PowerPoint, they use various different technologies. And obviously everyone's learning is different. So some people are stretched when it's Microsoft PowerPoint. Others really want to get into, the filmmaking part of it, and they want to use fancier technologies. And that's fine. But what's happening is they're learning about their context, about the environment around them, is being coupled with the technology integration piece. And that's just allowing them to start having a voice, to start sharing with others, and start running these like little micro campaigns back in their homes, in their communities, and in their schools and classrooms. The learning that we try to do at Edunova, and that we really, really hold as quite a high expectation on ourselves, is very, very personalized. Integration can only be meaningful when it is very accessible to people, and when it resonates or resounds with something quite deep and meaningful to them as a person. And we've learned that although we want to have a systemic, big picture impact and a really, really wide reach, that really does need to be done building and growing one individual at a time. So we're accessible to local communities. Our learning centres are in communities, they're local to the communities in which we work, but we're also working with people one-on-one, trying to enable growth and development in their individual lives. The learnings that we've had. So I'm going to focus on 3 learnings. Children want to learn. So I was one of those teachers in my first year of teaching who tried to get out of the system as quickly as possible because children were disruptive and unruly and undisciplined, and I still hear teachers saying that, and I know exactly what they mean because I had children throwing overhead projectors out of classroom windows. But what we've come to learn, and this happened later on in my teaching career and resonates with me every single time I walk into a modern technology-rich classroom or learning environment, children want to learn. Unfortunately, the opportunities that most children have are not relevant, modern enough to be engaging and thus effective learning for them. And I think we saw a really good example of that in one of Prof. Janssen's videos last night, where the kids were really, really engaged. And actually, that had nothing to do with technology. It was a teaching strategy. It was the way that the teachers could captivate those children. And technology is one piece of resource that can enable that to happen as well. And I think we just need to be openly critical, but also open-minded about how we can start to incorporate that in some of the wider areas that we're trying to work with education. The other big piece of learning, how am I doing for time?
Fine.
Great. The other big piece of learning that I just want to speak about that Edunova have had, and this has also been very, very personal for me, is that learning is really personal, and it's always fed by passion. There's nothing worse. I know I had many of them, teachers in school, who were just not passionate about their subject matter. And the same can be said for technology. So if a teacher can't find a personal way to connect with the technologies that schools, heads, the department are hoping for them to start using and integrating, there will never ever be a real teaching benefit because there'll be no passion around those technologies. I'm going to give an example, and it might sound really trivial, but when we start introducing teachers to the internet, one of the things that people always want to, expect us to do are point them to these wonderful academic or educational resources that are out there. And my passion, being integration, is saying, yes, go and use Google Earth, and this is how you use Google Maps to go and look at the world to teach your geography lessons. But the reality is, unless a teacher's really, really at that point where they're a super user on the internet, they have the skills to access that content, and they have the confidence and knowledge around those resources that are out there, they're not going to identify with that personally. So some of the strategies that we've taken are finding what's real in a teacher. So what's important, what are they passionate about? Teachers who really enjoy focusing or following different sports teams, show them a website that tracks their sports team's progress. Teachers who love cooking, find a cool recipe website. If that's their first experience of the internet, I can guarantee you any teacher that uses the internet for just that for 1 year of their life will be integrating technology a year down the line, because it's all the other access that they come into, all the other resources that they come into contact with during that time, which really enables them to start transforming their classroom. And the last thing that I just want to talk about are some of the limitations that we've realized. And again, this is both organizational for Edunova, but I think also personal and then also sector-wide. There's a serious constraint around accessing and putting highly skilled resources into our classrooms and into our organizations. And unfortunately, and I think this is real, this all is around money. So right now, the best skilled resources in education, in technology, in innovation, in business, in training, they're all working for our big corporates in the world, Google, Volkswagen, Pick n Pay, Old Mutual, earning really, really good salaries.